ये कंधावर दे जाता नाव पड़ता है तवली लेके आ रहे बुलाए गए कंधावर ये करे
record. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, one sec. I'll just on my video. Okay. Yeah, can I start?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Hello, good evening. Salam alaikum, Sat Sri Akal. Good evening to all of you. I wish you all a very happy Independence Day on behalf of Sanjeevan Physios. I also welcome you for today's 7th session conducted by us. We are really happy to have all of you in today's session, though it's a holiday. So I believe there are many new faces and ears as well today. So as we proceed, I would like to give a brief introduction about Sanjeevan Physios. Yeah. Sanjeevan Physios is a group of visually challenged physiotherapists who cater their services to the people of BBD Chawl, Worli, Mumbai. We are located at Sri Telugu Sudharak Yuvak Sangam, flat number 2, building number 111, BBD Chawl, Worli, Mumbai. We also have another center at Goregaon East, which is run by Dr. Shraddha Shinde. So as I introduce you today to the speaker of the day, I would like to introduce Miss M. Rizwana Parveen ma'am, who's a final year BPT student from Nandha College of Physiotherapy. So we welcome you, ma'am, for today's session, and she is going to share her knowledge about general visceral manipulation, which is a unique topic for most of us. So we thank you and welcome you, ma'am. So as we proceed further, there are some things to be mentioned. Participants are supposed to keep their mics on mute. Requesting all of you. Yeah, thank you so much. And also, all your queries and suggestions must be put in the chat box so that they may be replied by ma'am and reverted. And thirdly, I would like to tell you that we'll be sending a feedback form in the chat box, and your valuable views and suggestions will be highly appreciated by us. So without any further delay, I give it over to Rizwana ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nisha ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen. My screen is visible to everyone?
Yes. Yes, madam.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Rizwana Parveen, final year physiotherapy student from Nanda College of Physiotherapy, and my topic is visceral manipulation. I hope this will give some input knowledge to everyone. And this is a new topic that we are going to discuss now. So what is visceral manipulation? Okay. So visceral manipulation is a gentle manual therapy that assists the structural relationship between the visceral organs and their fascia and ligamentous attachment to various systems in our body. So as like as our body has joints, muscles, bones, so our visceral organ also having such ligamentous connections. It also gives some movements also. Like we already learned in biomechanics only for the joints, but our visceral organs also having such a biomechanic movements. It also having an axis and planes. It also having an orthokinematic movements also that we will discuss later. Okay, visceral manipulation is a gentle manual therapy. We already used in our clinical practice a normal manipulation and mobilization. So that is a high thrust velocity technique, but visceral manipulation is a rhythmic gentle manual therapy that we will apply in our visceral organs. I hope this would be clear. And visceral manipulation is applied to assess the functional and structural imbalances throughout the body, including musculoskeletal, vascular, nervous, urogenital, respiratory, digestive, alimentary, and neuroendocrine and lymphatic dysfunction. So all the visceral organs, we can manipulate and mobilize all the organs. So let's see some histories. Who are the founder, discoverer, and who developed this concept? So founder was Dr. Still in late 19th century. So he found that he could treat most of the diseases by palpating the dysfunction area with our own hands, and he is the first person to describe the manipulation, and he's the first person to start the manipulation over the visceral organs also. He also treated many organs in late 19th century also. So keep it in mind, this is not a new technique. This is already started in late 19th century by Dr. Still. So come along with Dr. Still, William G. Sunderland is a student of Dr. Still. He is following the cranial concept, that is craniosacral therapy. He is a student of Dr. Skill, and he said that the original idea of a cranial concept, and he never implies that not only one on the particular area to treat. So as a therapist, we have a role in treating the all over the body, not only in the musculoskeletal structures, but also we can treat our visceral organs also. We are capable for that. And he gave multiple references for treating the visceral organs and visceral dysfunctions also. And next one is Jean Perry Barrel. He is a French osteopath as well as a physiotherapist also. In 1980s, he developed the concept of visceral manipulation, an organ specific facial manipulation. His main focus is on facial manipulation, not in the skeletal structures, in the visceral organ. So in the visceral organ, there is attachment of fascias are there, ligaments are there, soft tissues are there. So he is manipulating and mobilizing the fascia. Now still we are a physiotherapist in all over the world following his concept only. So next one, let's discuss about some functions and dysfunctions of the viscera. So first one is the visceral function. So visceral function is based on 4 motions, that is somatic motion, autonomic motion, craniosacral rhythm, and some 3 principles of visceral motion. So before we start, we have to know the planes and axis of viscera. So we have to know the biomechanics of each and every organ. If you are a visceral manipulation therapist, you have to get knowledge with about anatomy, structure, positioning, relationship, biomechanics, axis and planes of each and every visceral organs, and effective physiology and functioning of each and every organs. Without knowing these details, you cannot keep in hands on that. Otherwise, this will cause some other secondary dysfunctions. So this is the book, The Biomechanics of Living Organs, written by Jochen and Payen. So this book will give us a detailed information about the biomechanics of all the living organs. So this book will describe the axis and planes of all organs. So we can read those books and gain some knowledge about the biomechanics of all the organs before we start treating the viscera. So each and every organ having certain axes and planes that we discussed before. And when we are coming up to visceral functioning, the first one is somatic motion. So somatic motion is controlled by somatic nervous system. So somatic nervous system is not so different. That is, central nervous system will produce giving some nerves and controlling our voluntary movements in our body. So that is a somatic nervous system. So controlling of our voluntary movements, skeletal movements, that is somatic activity. For example, walking, running, jogging, all the activities produced from our body that are controlled voluntary movement from our central nervous systems. So our controlled voluntary movements will passively act on our organ, producing passive mobility on the organ. So our visceral organ is not in the particular position. So it is not in a static manner. If you are walking, your internal organs also moving in a small amplitude, in a small rhythm. It also moving in a small amplitude for providing some function for effective functioning. So there is a changing position of the organ also. So if you are moving, the axis and planes of organ also will get moved. The biomechanical alignment of the organ also will get changes. The next one is the autonomic motion. Autonomic motion is controlled from the autonomic nervous system. So we know autonomic nervous system has a sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system that is commonly supplied in all our visceral organs. So it gives all the functions of the visceral organ is maintained by the autonomic nervous system. So it has a direct and indirect impact on the visceral organs. So autonomic nervous system will control all the functions of the visceral organs. Central nervous system will control some skeletal movements. That skeletal movement will produce a passive mobility on the organ. The autonomic nervous system will produce some direct and indirect impact on the visceral organ. That will produce some movements also in a small amplitude and a small rhythmic manner. So under the autonomic nervous system, there are three major concepts are there that are diaphragmatic motion, cardiac motion, peristaltic motion. The first one, what is diaphragmatic motion? Diaphragmatic motion, that is the movement of the diaphragm while respiration. During respiration, the inspiration and expiratory phase will take place. So during inspiratory phase, the position of the diaphragm will get changed. So normally diaphragm is a dome-shaped structure. So during inspiration, it ascends, and during expiration, it descends. And there are a lot of pressure changes also occur. So per day, there are 22 times of diaphragmatic motions occur. So each and every time the diaphragm is moving, the structure which get attached to the diaphragm is also moving. It also come under the mobility actions. So there are certain structures like a liver. Inferiorly, the liver is attached by a double layer supporting system that I will tell you later. And superiorly, there are rib cages, thoracic cavity, and inferiorly there is abdominal cavity. So mechanism of diaphragm will produce some pressure changes in both the cavities also. So next, the distance between the diaphragm and the pelvis is reduced. During inspiration, the distance between the diaphragm and the pelvis will get reduced, and reduced in the volume of the abdominal cavity, and there is increase in the anterior posterior diameter. So anterior abdominal wall is to come forward, like anterior diameter of the anterior abdominal wall get increased, and the pressure also will get rises. Because the diaphragm, when we look into anatomy of the diaphragm, posteriorly it has vertebral column, inferiorly it has pelvic girdle. So there is no chance for both structures to get under deformation. So it will never change during the respiration. But the soft tissue structures which is get in relationship with the diaphragm will get moving. So during respiration, it moves forward. During inspiration, the anterior posterior diameter may increases. During expiration, the diameter may decreases. The same process also occur in the thoracic rib cage also, as we learned already in the anatomy. So whenever there is a fluctuation between these end inhalation and end exhalation, the organ will start to slide each other and rub each other in the diaphragm. So the some of the structures will get attached to the diaphragm, will get slide each other, rub each other. So next motion is the cardiac motion. So this motion is approximately 122 times per day. So it has a direct impact on the lungs, esophagus, mediastinum, and the diaphragm. We know the cardiac motion will never stop. It frequently pumping, and it is a hollow muscular organ and frequently pumping. And each and every pump, that rhythm, that force will be act, that vibration and the will be act on the diaphragm, lungs, esophagus, mediastinum, and from the diaphragm the rhythmic movements also that also transferring, that it going in the wave like motion to the abdominal organ also. If you auscultating in the diaphragm, or if you auscultating below the diaphragm, you can note a minimal vibration of the cardiac motions. So next one is the peristaltic motion. So peristaltic motion is mostly found in the hollow organs. For example, stomach, intestines. So these two structures will produce a peristaltic movements. So the peristaltic motion consists of great contractile wave stirring and circulating the visceral content. So it has a great contractile wave. Those soft tissue structures will having a great contractile wave. So it frequently circulating the visual structures. So it has a less efficiency of visceral mobility than the diaphragm. When we comparing to diaphragmatic motions and cardiac motion, so peristaltic motion has a less effect and we don't even note often. But when you are considering about a pathology of a digestive system, you have to note for the peristaltic motion. This is very important. So next one is the craniosacral rhythm. So I have already said before, the craniosacral rhythm and the craniosacral concept was developed by William G. Sunderland. He is a student of Dr. Still, and he not only focused not only in the cranial concept, but also his focus is visceral organs also. So he explained that a CSF fluctuation can cause the cranial motions. So CSF in the skull, whenever there is a fluctuation, it will cause some cranial motion. We cannot note that motions, we cannot visibly see those motions. So per minute there are 8 to 12 cycles is happening under the autonomic nervous system control. So the craniosacral rhythm and the craniosacral concept is mostly depend on the CSF circulation only. There are two phases in the rhythm. First one is a flexion phase. Second one is the extension phase. The flexion phase is otherwise called as active or expansion. Extension phase is otherwise called as passive or relaxation. So flexion phase, during the flexion phase, there is an increase in the anterior posterior diameter of the skull and decrease in the width of the skull that I will explain you now. And during extension, there is a relaxation, like there is a reduction in the anterior posterior diameter of a skull. The anterior posterior diameter of a skull will get reduced when the second phase of the rhythm will get started. So if there is a pressure changes in the atrial system, venous system, and the CSF circulation in the skull, the cranial motions also will get changed. If the atrial pressure, venous pressure is increased, the cranial motion also will get to change. If it is decreased, the cranial motion also will get to change. So what happened during the flexion phase? So CSF secreted from this brain, that is from the ventricle. So during secretion, the ventricle will get start to swell. All the horizontal diameter of the ventricle will get increases. The ventricle will reach certain threshold. So whenever there is a reach in the certain threshold, the ventricle will start to produce some CSF fluids, and this CSF fluid will get moving to that arachnoid, subarachnoid spaces. So whenever there is an increasing in the CSF secretion, the receptor present in all over the skull will produce some sensory stimulus to that ventricle to stop the CSF secretion. So this is a reflex activity. So what happened in case of increased CSF secretion? The venous system will absorb the CSF, and there is a reduced in the pressure, and there is an extension phase will begin. So first, initially, the CSF will be secreted, the pressure and the threshold will get changed, receptor will get stimulated, reflex activity occurs, reabsorption starts from the venous system, and pressure will get reduced, and the extension phase and the relaxation of the rhythm will get started, and again the anterior posterior diameter of a skull will get reduced. As the CSF pressure in the ventricle drops, the suture compress, and the CSF volume within the craniosacral system is also reduced. So we cannot see in our eyes. We have to feel that movement. So craniosacral rhythm movement can be felt under our arms while you are keeping your hands on any particular suture. Ask the patient to do respiration, and you can note it for a minute, and you can see that a mild movement of the cranium we can see. The craniosacral pump is a passive movement. So whenever there is a pressure variations in the CSF circulation, the craniosacral pump will start to begin under the influence of baroreceptor, mechanoreceptor that is present in all over the skull. So next one is the three principles. So these three principles is main and important for the visceral movements and visceral manipulation also. So based on these three principles, the evaluation assessment has to be done. Based on the three principles, the treatment protocol has to be set. So what is motricity? So this is a passive change in the position of the organ. So the first I have discussed in the somatic nervous system. So whenever the person is doing certain musculoskeletal activity, there is a passive change in the position of the organ. For example, if the person is flexing his trunk, the liver that is present under the diaphragm will start to come antero-inferiorly. So if he flex his trunk, it will come antero-inferiorly. If the person is rotating his trunk, the opposite visceral structure will get stretched, and the ipsilateral structure will start to compress. So these are some of the changes and some of the movements has done while there is a movement of this musculoskeletal structure. Next one is a mobility, that is motion of the organ and movement of the organ from the passive change in the position. So next one is a motility, that is an amplitude. So each and every organ having a certain
ये सब ऑफ है ना?
sir,
स्पीकर भी ऑफ है ना?
Yes, ma'am.
It's showing that meeting gonna end in 2 to 3 minutes. What can I do?
Ma'am, after this meeting over, we'll rejoin again with the same link.
Okay, sir. So until I'll continue the session, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So next one is the automatism. So automatism is it is otherwise called as motility, is otherwise called as automatism. So both are same. So each and every organ having a small rhythmic amplitude. So organ motion will be in the small frequency, in the small amplitude. So it will be in the automatic manner. It will never stop. It will never move like that. 1 minute. Yes, I'm sorry. So this action is completely in the automatic manner. So if there is any pathology, this amplitude, rhythm, and the automatism principle will get changed. So I hope this would be clear. These are the major things that we have to note while evaluating, while setting a treatment protocol. These three principles is really very important. I hope you cleared. So next one is a visceral articulation. So how the viscera is moving. Visceral articulation. So as same as our joints having this articulation like flexion of arm, extensions of arm, abduction, adduction, our viscera also having certain attachment. It also having a certain movements. As I said before, the visceral organ are organized in these certain axes and planes during an early embryological life. It also having certain ligamentous connections. It also having It also moving in a small amplitude and rhythm. So let's discuss about four systems in the attachment. So that is a double layered system. Example, pleura. Pleura having a serous membrane and that is attached to the rib cages. So that is a double layered system. The structure which is get attached between the two organs or between the musculoskeletal on the organ, that is a double layered system. So this system will produce some suctioning effect over the organ and it will produce the sliding effect. So the organ will be sliding over the nearby structure or neighboring structure. If it is attached to the musculoskeletal, it will moving on, it will slide on the musculoskeletal. It will be, if it is attached to the nearby organ, it will be sliding over the nearby organs. So next one is a ligamentous connection or ligamentous system. As we normally in our joints also having the same ligament, so that is no problem. So this ligament is keeping the organ, it is stabilizing the organ in a proper place. So in case of any ligamentous laxity, the organ will be misplaced, the biomechanical alignment of the organ will get changed. Next one is turgor and intercavity pressure. So we having a thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity, and many cavities are there, like pelvic cavity, cranial cavities are there. So each and every cavity having certain pressure system, that pressure system will maintain our organ to be stabilized in the proper position and to be placed in the anatomical axis and planes. So next one is a mesenteric system and the omental system that we found in the intestine. Mostly this system will produce the suspension effect over the organs. So there are certain factors that causing restriction to the visceral organ, that is foodstuffs, psychological, environmental, endocrine, and emotional. I think we already heard about these type of emotions may cause a danger to these organs. Like if you get anger, if you get sad for longer period of time, if you're grieving, if you are so sad, your stomach will get affected. If you're getting anger, your liver will get affected. So there are like this a lot of emotional aspects will affect our organs also. And in the chemical system and hormonal issues also affecting the visceral restrictions. And psychological aspect, if the person is after trauma, if the person is a prolonged bedridden, if he is psychologically affected and he is not moving, and he's not moving, as we know the normal bedridden complications, the visceral organ will start to work in the abnormal functioning, so dysfunctioning of the viscera will get occur. And certain food stuffs, so nowadays we are eating certain foods that consist of that loaded with a lot of chemicals, that those chemicals may irritate our soft tissues, may produce gastritis, and this gastritis may lead to some other dysfunctions also. So these are some of the factors that causing the visceral restrictions. So next one is a type of restriction. So there are three types of restriction, that is muscular restriction, ligamentous restriction, otherwise called as stenosis, articular restrictions. Articular restriction mostly occur in the post-surgical conditions. If the person is affected with infections, or if the person is affected with the prolonged inflammatory conditions, he have to undergo surgery compulsory. So after surgery, the removing of the affected part and the healing start to begin, and there is a formations of non-elastic granular tissues will start to form. So what will happen if there is no elasticity? There is a fixation of an organ and adhesion start to begin. The non-elastic structures will keep an organ or will keep the organ in a fixed manner. It will never allow the organ to mobilize. So there is an articulation restriction, there is a change in axis and planes of an organ, or change in biomechanical alignment of an organ. So there is a change in the organ stretch. Organ also will start to stretch. If there is an abnormal anatomical malpositioning of an organ, there is a stretching of an organ or the compressing of an organ also occur. So the mechanoreceptors all will start to stimulated, and the spasm over the organ surrounding soft tissues in the fascias and outer structures also will undergo protective spasm, and there is a further change in the vascularity, lymphatic circulation. If there is a vascularity, lymphatic circulation, the tissue perfusion will get compromised, and there is a no effective chemical exchanges happens in the tissues, and there is no proper physiology happening in the tissues, and there is a stasis and varicositis. Those changes will occur in case of fixation and adhesion. So these articular restriction will be mostly occur in case of post-surgical condition. So next one is a ligamentous condition. So this is secondary problem, secondary restriction occurring from the articular restriction. The ligamentous restriction is otherwise called as ptosis, secondary to adhesion. So a lack of mobility and lack of ambulation. So
excuse me, ma'am. Sorry,
yes,
excuse me, ma'am. Sorry to disturb you. Mr. Akram Khan, please mute yourself. Ma'am, can you please mute all?
I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Current view is shared. Double tap to hide होगा.
अरे ये दिख रहा है मतलब मैं दिख रहा हूँ क्या उसमें नहीं ना
can I continue?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Okay, sir. So next one is the ligamentous restriction or ptosis.
Yes.
This is
आवाज आ रही है.
secondary to adhesion. So what will happen if the person is prolonged immobilized? The ligament will start to laxity.
Technology and message
Requesting
The ligament will get to start laxity.
please mute your mics.
Thank you. The ligament will get start to laxity. That is a weakening of the ligaments and weakening of the soft tissues that lead to ligament laxity, and the ligament laxity will cause an organ to instabilize. So it will never keep an organ to be in the stabilized position. The ptosis of the organ occurs. So next one is a muscular restriction. Muscular restriction is otherwise called as viscerospasm. So mostly these muscular restriction occurs in the hollow muscular organ, or if the muscle, the soft tissue having the transverse longitudinal circular fibers, or if an organ, like example, that is a stomach, intestine. So there are a lot of chances muscular restriction occurs in the hollow muscular organs. Okay. So next one, there is a reduced in the motion and a painful mobility occurs. So what happened on the So can I start?
Yes, ma'am, but your voice is echo.
Yeah. I'm checking that.
Yeah.
So now it's clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir. So let me continue where I left out. That is muscular restriction. Viscerospasm is otherwise called as muscular restriction. Mostly occurs in the hollow muscular organ like stomach and intestines. So what is the secondary effect is there is a reduced in the visceral mobility, or otherwise a painful mobility occurs. So first the motility of the organ will reduce, followed by mobility will get reduced. So what is motility? So organ will moving in the certain amplitude and the rhythm, so that a small rhythmic amplitude and frequency will get reduced, and greater mobility will get reduced. So next one is the constrictions of lumen. So surrounding lumen and the soft tissue lumen also is constricting, and there is a surrounding soft tissues also will get damaged.
Once again, requesting to keep their mics muted, please. It's a request. Thank you very much. You can continue, ma'am.
Yes, sir. So next one is the visceral dysfunction. So up to this, we have discussed the visceral function, and hereafter we will discuss some visceral dysfunctions and some biomechanical alterations. And what happened in case of visceral dysfunction? So first we have to know what is visceral dysfunction. So there is an impairment in the altered mobility and motility of the visceral system in all the visceral and the systems. That is aphasia, neurological, vascular, skeletal, lymphatic, digestive, whatever system may be. If there is an impairment or in the altered mobility and motility of an organ, the dysfunction will get start to begin. So normally all the tissue will need some adequate fluid to be in the healthy environment. So what will happen in case of the fluid exchange compromises? The nervous system will get irritated. The optimal function will get reduced, as I discussed before. The anatomical plane and axis already get changed. So followed by there's a tissue perfusion will get compressed, the stasis will occur, and further dysfunction and secondary complications will also occur. There is a risk and the life threatening also the patient may prone to it. So normally our human body is interrelated. So we cannot separate each and everything. Our somatic system is connected with the visceral system, and the visceral system is also connecting with the somatic system. Not only through the anatomical structures, but also through some reflex points, through some referred points, and relations, structural relations, etc. So visceral dysfunctions are connected to the somatic dysfunctions through the connective tissues, nerves, and some fluids, and some double-layered systems and ligamentous attachments. Certain visceral attachments is also coming under to it. So in case of any visceral dysfunction, the somatic dysfunction will occur. For example, if the person is not moving his limb due to chest pain or due to any gastritis, it is only due to the gastritis, not any shoulder related orthopedic conditions. If the person is not moving that limb, we can check for the referred points. We have to make our point of view in the multi-directional. Like you should not focus not only in the skeletal system while examining, you have to focus on the visceral system also. You have to check the referred points. If the patient is complaining about the shoulder pain, you have to check for the nearby referred pain. If the patient is complaining about the chest pain, you have to check for the nearby referred pains. So this refer pains will give an additional ideas. This will give an extra ideas regarding that visceral dysfunction or not, or any other somatic dysfunctions only. So sometimes there may be a pre-symptomatic or non-symptomatic. If you're palpating or if you are examining the area, the symptoms will get start to aggravate. So you have to very concentrate. You have to be very cleared about the anatomical structure before examining the visceral structure. That is very important. The next dysfunction is a fascia pull. So what happened in case of dysfunction? The facial layer will arranging in the certain direction that will be pulled towards the dysfunction area. So if you place your hands over the patient, complaining, example, the patient complaining about pain over the stomach. If you're placing your hand over the area, just give some mild pressure, you can feel the fascia. So if you're moving along with the fascia, you can check where is the line of pull, where is the dysfunction occurs. So you can check 10% of the diagnosis process will end under the fascia examination. So you can also confirm this with the motion test also. Say in the dysfunction, fascia pull I have told, though in the fascia pull will be in the direction of dysfunction. So I have said that the fascia pull is towards the direction of dysfunction. The fascia is pulling towards the dysfunction area. So it is not in the unidirectional. So if an organ is affected, the multi-directional pull is occurred towards the dysfunction area, and there is a skin texture, temperature, contour, everything will get changed. If you start palpating, you can check skin also. The skin examinations also you can do. So on the skin examinations, you can also check certain direction. So on examination, you have to check for bilaterally. So you can see the organ is in this area, then why I have to go for bilateral? Though no, it is not like that. So bilateral examination is not only for the skin. If you check the skin in the other opposite side or any contralateral areas, you can easily identify that. So what happened in that particular area? So what is the reason for the dysfunction? So you can come in conclusion. So there is a preturbated fluid movements. The fluid movements also will get altered, and neurological changes also will get happen. So next one is the multi-strain, that is tensegrity. The body generally accumulates the many strains over the lifetime. So normally our muscles also having the strains over the ligaments. So that is common. So what happened in case of viscera? What happened in case of organs? That is, a strain takes the certain amount of force over the affected area. That is a certain tension that is acting on the fascia, which lead to multi-directional pull. That is fascia pull towards the direction of dysfunction. So if you apply the pressure, you can feel some hardness over the area. The patient also saying the tender, patient also complaining the severe pain, and you can also feel the severe tenderness over the area. So the one with the most important will have the biggest effect on the fascia. That is a multi-strain and tensegrity, multi-directional pull of the fascia. So you have to remove the strains by mobilizing, manipulating the viscera. So what is a plastic deformation? A straining hold that is larger than the yield strength of a tissue will cause a plastic. I can explain this. That is, if the structure is frequently under the certain vigorous and tension, the structure will start to deform, and it start to change it start to loses its strength, it start to deform. There is a change in elasticity of the structure. Then finally the structure will get ruptured. The ultimate strength of the structure will get reduced. So that is the stress and strain curve we have already learned in the biomechanics. Like whatever we have learned in the musculoskeletal biomechanics, all the principle will be applied in the viscera also. The only concept will get changing is the three principles, that is mobility, motricity, and motility. These three concepts will get changed, but all the principles that we learned in the musculoskeletal also applicable in the viscera also. So I'm coming to the point, that is kinetic energy of the potency. Loading force is stored as potential energy. So the certain force is held in the tissue, that is potential energy, is otherwise called as potency. So I'm explaining this again. What happened in case of severe stress and strain over the particular tissue? There is a increased stress and strain, increased permanent deformity. There is a change in viscoelasticity or elastic property of the tissues. There is a change in potency. There is a change in ultimate strength of a tissue, and finally the tissue will start to rupture. If you come into the viscera, the strength will mostly this will apply in the ligamentous system. So ligament laxity is come here. The ligament laxity is explaining here. That is plastic deformation mostly occur in the surrounding soft tissues of the organ, that is ligaments, mainly in the ligaments. So next one is the tight visceral ligament. So if there is increase in the mechanical tension, the ligament of the ligament, the fluid vessels also will get compresses. The pressure changes, that is the pressure will get reduced. The venous congestion will get started. The metabolic byproduct will get retented. The lymphatic vessel will relatively start to produce the edema. So what will happen in case of visceral ligament tightness? All the structure will undergo compression. After compression, all the structure will undergo a reduced pressure, congestion will occur, stasis will occur, edema will occur. So you can note when you are going with the facial examination, you can also check for this. The viscera is like completely the ligament is tight or it is in the laxity. I will explain you in the evaluation. So if there is an increase in tension, the arteries will get compressed. The reduced nutrition towards the tissue is also reduced. Oxygen is also reduced. Tissue compromises will occur, and eventually death and necrosis of the tissue will get starts. So finally, we are coming into the evaluation. I hope everyone is cleared with the visceral function and dysfunction. If you're not cleared with those topics, and you cannot treat the visceral organs, because those topics are really very important for treating. And the three principles, that is motricity, mobility, and motility, is major, that is very, very important for evaluating as well as setting a treatment protocol. So next is evaluation. If you're receiving a patient with a visceral dysfunction, you have to collect the history, a complete history of the patient. If he is undergoing the surgery, you have to collect the surgical history. If he is undergoing a trauma, you have to collect the accident history. If he is a prolonged bedridden patient, you have to collect all the histories. If he is having any blood report, any sample test, you have to collect all the details. So history collection will give a 50% of clear knowledge regarding the conditions. Next one is on examination. So you are palpating the organ to check the tone of the wall of a cavity. You are doing percussion to check the position and size of an organ. You are doing auscultation to check the circulation of air, blood, or is there any secretion in the cavities or not. And you have to check the mobility and range of motion of musculoskeletal structure. That is very important. I have already discussed in the musculoskeletal dysfunction that is interrelated with the visceral dysfunction. This will give you a point here. And next we come under the special test. So each and every organ having a certain special test. If you go into that book, that they will explain the detailing, but this is the major test is mobility test and the motility test. Motility test is otherwise called as listening test. Mobility test is a rhythmic and direction of the movement is to be determined. We know what is mobility. So for the mobility, the movement of the organ, we have to bring the mobility test. So just imagine yourself, you are checking, you are doing an examination of mobility of a certain organ, any organ, the patient to be in the comfortable position, that is relaxed supine lying, no pillow support, no arm support, or no support to be given, a complete plain on the complete plain plinth or couch, the patient to be in the supine lying. So you have applied some minimal pressure over the targeted organ, hold the organ and mildly lift up the organ, and you have to check for the elasticity. So you have to lifting up slowly and doing some up and down movement, right left movements like that. So doing this movement, you can check the elasticity of an organ. You can check the any laxity or any spasm or any structural changes is happening or not. So first of all, you have to be clear with anatomical axis and planes, and after anatomical axis and planes, and you can check for the mobility test. So next one is a motility test, that is listening test. So this test, the very important for checking the amplitude of motility of any viscera. We have to check the amplitude, frequency of an organ. So our total concentration to be total concentration focus, everything to be on the patient's targeted area on our hands while examining. Okay, just keep the patient in a supine lying, applying the soft pressure, feel the movement of the organ, just give some external force with a slow and visible movement to get amplitude. Okay, you have to do this before in the mobility test, giving some external movement in your own bare hands. Before checking, your hand temperature is very important. If the hand temperature altered, there is an induced spasm will be occur. There is a risk of occurring the induced spasm also. The motility test and listening test have to be performed. If you are lacking in concentration, or if you are concluding before a motility test, just keep your mind empty. Don't think of any structures in your mind. Just totally concentrate and focus on your bare hands, which is palpating the targeting organ. So if you are placing your hands on the targeted organ before continuously for a minute or for the 30 seconds, you can check a mild rhythmic amplitude in a small frequency, some movement of the organ that you can see. So in case of severe adhesion or severe tightness, that is very difficult for checking the motility. In case of any ligamentous laxity, or in case of any muscular restriction, so this evaluation will give some will give some another idea about what are the conditions are there on. Is there any normal or any abnormality? So the frequency to be a 7 to 8 cycle per minute. So normally every organ having a frequency of 7 to 8 cycle per minute. So you have to continue your examination for 1 minute. Or you can reduce to for a 30-second also, but 1 minute examination will give you a clear to defined idea what happened in these organs. So next one is the therapeutic effects. I hope this was cleared, and let's discuss some more therapeutic effects. So conditions that I have listed out in this slide are evidence based, that is in the Barrel Institute, Jean Perry Barrel has treated all the conditions, acute conditions like whiplash, seatbelt injuries, abdominal or sports injuries, concussion, traumatic brain injury. In the digestive conditions like bloating, constipation, nausea, and reflux disease, gastroesophagus reflux disease is otherwise called as GERD, swallowing dysfunction, and women's and health conditions also, chronic pelvic pain, endometriosis, fibroids, cysts, dysmenorrhea, bladder incontinence, prostate dysfunction, referral testicular pain, effect of menopause. Sometimes they have examined in the infertility patients also, that also has given them a very good outcome and results. The infertility also treated with visceral manipulation also. Irregular menstrual also treated with visceral manipulation. Some of the musculoskeletal condition like somatovisceral interaction, chronic spinal dysfunction, headache and migraine, carpal tunnel syndromes, peripheral joint pain, sciatica, neck pain, hip pain, and there are a lot of evidences has proven that the visceral manipulation is very effective for reducing the lumbar pain, neck pain, cervical pain, and brachial neuralgia like that. Some orthopedic related conditions. So visceral manipulation is effective for all the conditions like post-operative scar tissues, post-infectious scar tissues, autonomic mechanism dysfunctions, and pediatric issues like constipation, gastritis, persistent vomiting, vesicourethral reflux, infant colic, like emotional conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder also, and some of the psychic conditions also. They are applying this technique, and they got a very effective outcome. So next one is the contraindication. There are only two contraindications are there, that is infection and inflammation. So you should not keep your hands if the patient is affected with any infectious conditions or any inflammatory conditions. So our role is start with post-infectious post-surgery. After treating the infections and inflammation, we can start up our visceral manipulation to reduce the adhesion, fixation, reduce the ptosis, and reduce the musculospasm or viscerospasm. So what happened in case of infection? So normally physiotherapy is contraindicated for infectious conditions because it will start to spread and affects the nearby organs also. It will produce some sepsis over the blood vessels also. So there are a lot of pathologies occur. So we should not treat the infectious conditions. So in case of inflammatory conditions, you can treat the acute inflammation. Some acute inflammation, if the patient is tolerating his pain, you can combine along with the medications. You can go along with the medication, but it should be in the precautions. Otherwise, we should not treat the inflammatory conditions. I hope you all cleared with that indication, contraindication, function and dysfunctions. And let's go up with the manipulation technique. So there are a lot of techniques are there, but these three are important. So each and every visceral organ can modify these three techniques. So first technique is a direct technique, that is short-term lever, aim to improve the mobility. Second technique is also indirect technique, aim to improve the mobility. Third technique is the induction technique, aim to improve motility of an organs. So in the direct technique, therapist will use a pad of finger or hand to palpate or to assess and to treat the patient. Make the patient in the comfortable position. Mostly supine position is preferred. Sometimes a straight sitting is also preferred. Before starting the treatment session, you have to check the temperature of the patient, because the temperature may also induce some spasm, protective spasm. So applications of finger pad to be in the oblique angle, not in the straight or perpendicular towards the targeted organ. It should be in the oblique angle. We have to apply a gentle pressure, a smooth pressure towards the organ. And if you apply a smooth pressure towards the organ, just hold up the organ and give some mild traction to the organ. Along with the mild traction and tension, just mobilize the organ in the anterior posterior in the upward and downward, like that. You can mobilize the organ in any direction, so you have to do it 10 cycles per minute. So use the finger pads, comfortably position the patient. A therapist also should be in the comfortable position. Next one, we have to check the skin temperature before palpating. The finger pad application should be in the oblique angle. The gentle pressure to be applied towards the organs, and with the mild traction and the tension, the mobilization has to be done for 10 cycles per minute. So our main aim is to improve the elasticity, amplitude of the organ. So there is another type in the direct technique, that is recoil. If you're applying the tension to the organ, you can backing off it slowly, and you can repeat this procedure rhythmically. Like you can just minimally mobilize, lifting up the organ, slow down, lift up, slow down, like backing off the each and every movement slowly, and repeating the procedure by minimal pressure, rhythmical manner, to release the tension of the surrounding tissue. Then you can release your applied tension traction suddenly. So this is a recoil method. So you can usually apply for 3 to 5 times only, and these are mainly helpful for treating the secondary restriction. So what is secondary restriction? In case of any pathology in the one organ, the surrounding neighboring organ also will get affected. For treating that organ, you can use this technique. In the indirect technique, I'm sorry. Yeah. So you have to treat, in case of you're treating the adhesion, you have to apply the tension progressively in the perpendicular manner towards the adhesion, and your palpitation has to be done before. Whether the adhesion, where is the facial pull, you have to examine that clearly. You have to do mobility tests and motility tests before, and you have to do all the clinical examinations before starting to treat the adhesion. Okay, now come under adhesion treatment. The organ has to be placed under the tension. As I said before, the minimal traction has to be applied perpendicularly towards the adhesion area, with a mild mobilization has to be performed in the parallel manner. Adhesion, so traction to be in the perpendicular direction, and the mobilization to be in the parallel manner. Okay, in the plane of an organ, that is parallel manner in the plane of an organ. So if you're treating the ptosis, the progressive traction has to be done in the direction, that is you can do it in the upward direction. So due to laxity, ligamentous laxity, the organ will come downwards due to gravitational pull. So you can do it in the opposite direction, that is in the upward direction. You can give some traction in the upward direction and mildly mobilize the organ. In case of treating the visceral spasm, mobility will be disturbed in the musculoskeletal structures. So the direct technique consists of putting the organ under the tension. So we have to produce some tension and traction towards the tissues, and mobilization has to be encouraged to increase the mobility of an organ. So in the greater, so we have to treat the visceral spasm in the plane of an organ, in the axis and plane of an organ. The organ has a specific axis and planes. In that axis, the plane is moving. So visceral spasm has to be treated in the particular plane only. So for the ptosis and adhesion, we should not change here. For the visceral spasm, we have to go up with that direction only. So in the indirect technique, the use of long lever mobilization, the long lever arm has to be used. They are frequently combined with the direct technique. This is same as like a direct technique. but the long lever arm will be used by the therapist to increase the tension and to increase the mobilization effect. So, for example, for mobilizing the kidney, the patient to be in the supine lying, if you flex his hip and the knee and complete extreme range up to end range of hip flexion, you can see the lumbar also will get start to trunk lumbar, and the trunk also will get start to flexion. So on that lumbar trunk flexion, you can just minimally increase the flexion rate and you can mobilize the kidney. So this is an example of long lever arm mobilization. So this will produce the indirect impact and effectiveness on the organs. The next one is the induction technique. So induction techniques. So for this, I have already told before, I have repeated the same point again and again. We have to know the direction, positioning, amplitude, axis and planes, motility and mobility of an organ. So before that, we have to do the listening test to start the induction technique. So first we have to know what is the neutral point. So neutral point is a normal physiological movement will be occur in the neutral point axis. So in the neutral point axis, so all the rhythmical motion will get occur. In case of there is a loss of symmetry, there is a limitation will occur. So one aspect will get start to will get start to limit, and one aspect of the end will get start to exaggerate its movements. So this is the neutral point. So there is a change in neutral point. The main aim of the induction technique is to bring the organ to the neutral point. So in the induction technique, the pendulum-like movement is given. The pendulum-like motion is given, like apply some minimal traction to the organ, some minimal tension, just give some rhythmic oscillation. You have seen in the pendulum, right? It will be moving in the rhythmical manner. So in the rhythmical manner, you can mobilize the organ. You can also encourage the larger movement, but should not encourage the faster movement. Only encouraging of the larger movement for mobilizing the organ. So this will improve the vitality of the organ, and it also improve the function, and the amplitude also organ also will get started. So this process is otherwise called as facilitation. So the main aim is to bring the point to be in the equilibrium. We have to bringing this. We have to doing this and bringing this organ to in the neutral point. So in the induction technique, the cranial sacral therapy also come under the induction technique. So the still point, the point that is the dysfunction area point is a still point here. Occur, it is the best to allow it to continue for 10 to 20 minutes seconds and then restart the motion. The same pendulum-like motion also applied in the craniosacral therapy also. So the next one is parameter. The treatment protocol should be planned based on these parameters only. The gentle rhythmical treatment has to be given. The 10 cycles has to be followed per session. You have to give an interval between 2 sessions. Like if your patient is coming tomorrow, give an interval tomorrow. The patient is approaching you today, give interval tomorrow and ask him to come day after tomorrow. Like per week, 3 sessions have to be done. So for effectiveness, you can follow this for 6 weeks. Per minute, 7 to 8 cycle has to be given approximately for 5 minutes. So whatever the condition may be acute, subacute or chronic, only 5 minutes treatment protocol is effective for all the three types. Okay, acute, subacute and chronic, you have to apply for 5 minutes. And the effects, like it will produce some general and local metabolism, it will produce the placebo effect, it will improve the mobility and motility of the organ. This will improve the circulation of the fluid and reduce the stasis and reduce the compression of the structures. It will improve the sphincter activities, reduce the muscular spasm. It will maintain and balance the hormone and chemical production. It will improve immunity, and it will also produce some psychic effect also. So this is the book that I have followed, and this is the book that I have written by the Jean Perry Barrow, that is Visceral Manipulation Revised Edition. This will give us a complete idea about the visceral manipulation and how we have to approach for each and every organ zone. And there are a lot of studies has given in the Journal of Osteopathic Medicine. If you go to the Journal of Osteopathic Medicine website, you can see lot of techniques, lot of condition is treated with the visceral manipulation. So there are lot of techniques and approach come under the visceral manipulation, but I have discussed three. Here is the three main majors. And American Osteopathic Association is also having lot of a lot of evidence-based researches, and that research, based on this research, you can follow, you can approach the patient and the conditions. So this is an example that is combined with the manual therapy technique. The women can treat it with infertility. So we can treat the infertility case also with the help of visceral manipulation. So as a physiotherapist, we should not focus not only in the one condition. We have to see in multi-directional. We have to approach all the patients. We have to go with all the techniques. We have to see all the patients. We should not stand in that bone muscles there only. So that what doctor still says, don't start with the bone, but don't end up there, just go deeper and deeper. What did William says that dig on, just keep moving that like go on with a different concept, not just don't stand up with the I'm orthopedic physiotherapist, I'm a neuro physiotherapist. That don't stand there, just go up with the new, just go lot of techniques, and emerging new technique was coming up there, so you can go up there also. And thank you everyone for your patience and listening.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I request you to read certain questions which have come up in the chat box.
Yes, a referral book that I have said before is written by Jean Perry Barrel. This is the book of reference, and we can use this book because currently all therapists are using this book only, Visceral Manipulation, written by Jean Perry Barrel. There is a Barrel Institute website also there you can approach, there you can ask all the doubts. The Jean Perry Barrel still also in the online, and he will explain all the doubts for us. And there are a lot of therapists is present over there. They clear all our doubts.
Yes, ma'am, you can further read out the questions.
Yes, ma'am, I am
and
just
reply them.
Yes, I'm reading. Any contraindication for pregnant women? So we have to check before hormonal issues is there or not. We have to check the position of the fetus, and before approaching the pregnant women, we have to see what condition they are approaching us. In case of the mostly pregnant women will have a pelvic floor ligament laxity, pelvic floor weakness. So for that we can go with the pelvic floor training. And for this, I didn't see any article regarding the contraindication for pregnant women. So sorry, I don't have any idea. And how this help in carpal tunnel syndrome. So this will produce like it's same like a automatic manipulations and mobilization. So we are reducing so the soft tissue structures. We are reducing the tension over the soft tissue structures, and we are reducing the nerve that will get compressed. That we are releasing that nerve compression. Actually, I clearly don't know, but I have read that article that this is reducing the carpal tunnel syndrome. If I get a chance, I will share that article in the group also. So these are osteopathic techniques for physiotherapy. So Jean Perry Barrel is also osteopath as well as he also physiotherapist. So we don't use any medicine over here. We are not using any other medical protocol here. We are just applying a manipulations and mobilization. How much you are effective, how much you are knowledgeable with that anatomical aspects, you can go with the viscera. For that, you have to do with visceral manipulation certificate that is done in the Barrel Institute, given by the Jean Perry Barrel. So there are online certification courses also there, so you can go up there. Physiotherapists also nowadays doing the visceral manipulation in the foreign abroad countries. So we also having that So we can also follow that. There is no issues. So can you explain 3 principles again? So 3 principles of physical mobility is motricity, mobility, and motility. What is motricity? There is a passive change in the position of the organs. So as like a normal somatic musculoskeletal movement, when you're doing a normal musculoskeletal movement, the structure which is present in your abdominal cavity, thoracic cavity will get moved. It also passively changing its position. Like if you are flexioning your trunk, if you are extending your trunk, organ presenting in the abdominal cavity will get compressed and it will get relaxed. And if you're walking, your pelvic floor and the presence in the organ in the pelvic cavity is also will get mobilizing. It also will get moving. There is a minimal change in position only. There is no marked changes that we cannot see. And next one is the mobility. That is a motion of an organ. So when there is a passive change, okay. The principles and theories are motricity, mobility, and motility. Motricity means there is a passive change in position of an organ during the musculoskeletal activities. So mobility means that a movement of an organ occurs if there is a passive change in position. So what is the movement? It will be in the small rhythmical movement that is motility principle, a small rhythmical amplitude movement. So if you're walking, pelvic girdle, the organ present in the pelvic cavity is also moving. The ligament attached is also mobilizing. It also helps the organ to moving. So that is a mobility of an organ. The next one is the motility, automatism, amplitude, and rhythm. Organ having certain amplitude and rhythm, that is it will be moving. That mobility of an organ will be in the very small frequency, small amplitude, and in a very small rhythmic manner. If you are doing a motility test or listening examination test, you can feel that organ amplitude motions. That's all.
Yes, ma'am. Are you done with all the queries?
Yes, ma'am. I have finished everyone's queries. Is there any doubts?
No, I don't. Yeah, there is another one which has come up. You can complete that, ma'am.
Anything for knee pain? Visceral manipulation is mainly for the treating visceral organs only. For knee pain, we can go up with normal conventional physiotherapies. The structures which is getting attached with the visceral organ, like abdominal cavity, thoracic cavity, spinal column, cranial cavity, that only we can treat with the visceral manipulation. For extremities, we can go up with the normal manipulation, mobilization, and conventional physiotherapy techniques. Yes, thank you.
Yes, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Here's requesting. Yes.
Hello,
Can I
ma'am.
continue?
Hello. Can I ask a question through the audio, please?
Yes, sir.
Hello, I am Chetan Soni from Gandhidham, Gujarat. Ma'am, if a patient presents before us directly before approaching a doctor, a medical doctor, how can we diagnose, or what are the points of differential diagnosis to rule out red flag signs?
So we can go with the normal assessments, like normal physiotherapy assessment. If they're coming, approaching you with any visceral related conditions, you have to go with the mobility test and listening test, and followed by there are lot of special tests and differential test for each and every organ. So based on that organ, we have to go up with the differential diagnosis also. So if the red flags means you can check a medical history if the patient is having a previous medical history or not. If that is no, you can ask some questions. Does he have any infectious conditions? Does he have any fever, any infection before? So why he is approaching us directly here? So we can ask a lot of condition, but red flag is inflammation and infections, and high chronic conditions like that. I don't know exactly, but these two are majorly that we have to focus while examining the patients.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you done, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Now he is requesting Mayur Parmar sir to propose a vote of thanks.
Hello? Hello? Mute.
Yes,
Mute
sir,
button.
you are audible.
Yeah, I'm audible. Yeah. Good evening to all. I'm physiotherapist Mayur Parmar. I'm glad that I have been given opportunity for vote of thanks on behalf of Sanjeevan Physios. Thank you so much, Rizwana Parveen ma'am, for such a wonderful webinar on visceral manipulation. I hope we can arrange a physical webinar workshop if it is possible once the corona gets subside. Thank you so much, Nisha Castellino ma'am, for your introductory speech and moderating the webinar. Thank you all the participants for giving your valuable time. A special thanks to our technical team, Praful sir, Ratan sir, and Amita ma'am for your technical support. We will be sharing a feedback form in the chat box and the group. I request all the participants to please share your feedback in the group, which will be motivating for us. I'll be concluding this speech with the hope that we'll be meeting again soon in the future in the upcoming webinars. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks to all the participants and ma'am as well. Okay. Good night to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
बंद कर दो, leave कर दो।